we have to consider, in fact, three types of effects. We have effects on farmers, effect on consumers, and macroeconomic effects. So regarding farmers, basically, price stability generates a price risk and may affect investment by two channels. First, if the risk is very high, farmers are reluctant to invest. And secondly, if the price risk is high, banks are reluctant to lend them money. So by these two channels, it affects investment. And by affecting investment, it generates several consequences. The first one is that agricultural production remains very sensitive to natural hazard. And so there is a kind of vicious cycle because as grain prices are unstable, farmers do not invest and the production remains sensitive to natural hazard and price remain unstable. So we have a kind of vicious cycle like this. But the other consequences is that agricultural productivity remains low for grains. And the consequence of this is that a great part of the land and the labor in countries is used to produce basic food products. And also, as the cost of basic food products is high, they account for a large share in household expenditures. So by these two channels, it may hamper the long-run economic development of countries because many resources are used to produce basic food products, and also there is very few space for demand for other products because of the cost of basic foods. So this is on the side of consumer, now, or of farmers. Now we can consider the side of consumers. And what happened in many developing countries is that basic food products account for a large share in household expenditures, and also grain provides the major part of the caloric intake for all social classes, for rural people, urban people, rich and poor. So by this way, we see that when prices are increasing a lot, consumers have to adapt to this. And one way to adapt is to reduce grain consumption with potential adverse consequences on the caloric intake. Or they can reduce the consumption of other food products in order to be able to maintain their grain consumption level. And in this case, they may suffer from deficiencies in different nutrients. Or they can reduce their consumption of other goods, for instance, of health, education. And by this way, this can affect labor productivity and human capital and compromise the long-run economic development. Another important thing is that it can also generate macroeconomic effects, because if when grain price rise, consumer reduce their demand for other products, for non-food products, it may affect the other sector of the economies. And maybe a third range of consequences is on investment and savings. In order, when there is a food price crisis, many households have to dip into their saving in order to pass the crisis or to sell some of their assets, for instance, to sell cattle. And the consequence of this is that from crisis to crisis, households lose their capital, their saving, and their resilience, especially in regions of the world where the frequency of price crisis is very high, as is for example, the case in the Sahel or in the Horn of Africa.